The starship Celestara, a vessel once designed for royal travel, now drifted aimlessly through the cold expanse of uncharted space. Its once brilliant hull was scorched and battered, the insignias of Celestria's royal house stripped away. Inside the dimly lit cabin, Princess Aline held her young daughter, Alara, close. The child, no older than 3 solar cycles, slept fitfully, her tiny hand gripping a tattered blanket. Aline brushed a strand of silken white hair from Alara's face, her own expression a mixture of sorrow and fierce determination. The memory of her banishment was still fresh. Before the Council of Stars, her brother, King Rylan, had pronounced her exile, condemning her for breaking their strict traditions. "You have shamed our bloodline," Rylan had declared, his voice void of mercy. "As punishment, you and the child will be cast out. You are no longer welcome in this galaxy." Now, Elaine stared out at the endless void, her resolve hardening. "They may have taken my home," she whispered, "but they will not take my hope." Her ship's systems flickered weakly, its power reserves nearing depletion. Supplies were scarce, and the threat of pirates loomed. Aline knew their time was running out. Far away, Sergeant Max Dalton patrolled the outer sectors in his battle-hardened frigate, the Vanguard. A seasoned soldier in the Terran Defense Corps, Max was no stranger to danger or desperation. His mission was to protect the fringes of human-occupied space from pirates and rogue factions, but this day brought an anomaly. The distress signal came in faint and fractured, barely readable over the static. Unidentified vessel, critical failure, seeking aid. Max frowned, adjusting the comm system. "Can you repeat? This is Sergeant Dalton of the Terran Defense Corps." No response. His instincts flared, urging him to ignore the signal. It could be a trap. But something about the faint, almost pleading tone struck a chord. "Lieutenant," he said to his co-pilot, "bring us in closer." As the Vanguard approached the crippled Celestara, Max scanned the ship. Its systems were failing, its engines dead, and life support was barely functional. "We've got life signs," he noted, his tone sharp. 2, 1 adult and 1 child. "Could be a bait," the lieutenant warned. Max shook his head. "Or someone who needs saving." He docked and boarded the vessel, his blaster drawn but his posture cautious. The air inside was thin and cold. Following his scanner, he found Aline and Alara in the main cabin, huddled together. "Who are you?" Aline demanded weakly, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. Her golden eyes locked onto Max, shielding her daughter instinctively. Max lowered his blaster. "Sergeant Max Dalton, Terran Defense Corps. I'm here to help." Aline's guard remained up. "Why would you help us?" Max's expression softened. "Because someone needs to. Can you walk?" Aline hesitated, her exhaustion evident, before nodding. Max scooped up the sleeping Alara, who stirred briefly before nestling into his arms, her small frame fragile yet trusting. Back on the Vanguard, Max ordered his medics to treat Aline and Alara. He watched as Aline clung to her daughter even in her weakened state, refusing to let go despite her own injuries. "She's strong," Max muttered to himself, admiration flickering in his thoughts. As Aline regained her strength, she eyed Max warily. "You don't know who I am. Why risk yourself for strangers?" Max shrugged, his tone matter-of-fact. "You needed help, that's all I needed to know." For the first time in months, Aline allowed herself a small smile. "Thank you, Sergeant Dalton. You may have just saved our lives." Max nodded. "Get some rest, you're safe now." As he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning of something far greater. For Aline, hope flickered anew, her exile no longer defined by isolation, but by the unexpected kindness of a human soldier. Life aboard the Vanguard was a stark contrast to the desolation of the Celestara. The ship was bustling with activity, its crew disciplined yet kind, and its facilities a haven for Aline and Alara after their harrowing ordeal. Aline had insisted on helping where she could, her royal training in diplomacy and strategy lending her a sense of purpose. Sergeant Max Dalton, ever watchful, kept a respectful distance, but his presence was constant. He ensured Aline and Alara had what they needed and subtly encouraged the crew to welcome them. Alara, full of youthful curiosity, quickly charmed everyone. She followed the crew around, asking endless questions about the ship's operations. One day, she wandered into the command room, her golden eyes wide with fascination. "Careful, little one," Max said, gently steering her away from the navigation console. That button launches probes, and I'm not sure we're ready for that. Alara giggled, her laughter filling the room. What does this button do, Mr. Max? That's Captain Max to you, he teased, his tone warm. From a distance, Aline watched the interaction, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, her daughter was smiling again. Sharing stories. One evening, Max found Aline sitting in the observation deck, gazing at the stars. He joined her, the silence between them comfortable. You're adjusting well, he remarked. Aline nodded. It's easier when I'm not alone. She paused, her tone turning somber. I haven't thanked you properly for saving us. Max shrugged. It's what I signed up for, protecting those who can't protect themselves. Elaine's gaze lingered on him. You've done more than that. You've given us hope. Max hesitated, then asked, What happened, Aline? Why were you out there alone? She sighed, the weight of her story pressing down on her. I was a princess on Celestria. My daughter's father was someone my people didn't approve of. When I chose love over duty, they cast me out. My brother, King Rylan, made it clear that Alara and I were a stain on the royal lineage. Max's jaw tightened. That's cruel. They abandoned their own flesh and blood. To them, tradition is everything, Elaine said bitterly. But Alara is my everything. I'll endure any exile to keep her safe. Max's respect for Elaine deepened. You're stronger than most people I've met. And for what it's worth, your daughter's lucky to have you. For a moment, Elaine allowed herself to believe his words, the warmth in his voice a balm to her weary soul. Their newfound peace was interrupted by a blaring alarm. The crew scrambled as Max's lieutenant reported an incoming ship. Unidentified vessel approaching at high speed, it's armed. Max immediately took command. Shields up, prepare for evasive maneuvers. In the chaos, Elaine rushed to the command room, clutching Alara's hand. What's happening? Max turned to her, his expression grim. It's a pursuit ship, likely sent by your brother. Elaine's face paled. He's found us? The enemy ship opened fire, its blasts rattling the Vanguard. Max sparked orders, expertly maneuvering the frigate to avoid direct hits. Return fire, he commanded. The crew responded swiftly, their precision honed by countless battles. But the pursuit ship was relentless, its advanced weaponry testing the Vanguard's defenses. In the safety of a secure chamber, Aline held Alara tightly. The child's innocent questions about the battle only deepened Elaine's anguish. Will Mr. Max keep us safe, Mama? Yes, my love, Elaine whispered, her voice firm despite her fear. He always does. But as the ship shuddered under another impact, Elaine's composure wavered. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Alara, or the man who had risked everything to protect them. Max's tactical brilliance turned the battle in their favor. Identifying a weakness in the enemy ship's shields, he directed a precise strike that disabled its engines. They're retreating, the lieutenant reported, relief evident in his tone. Max exhaled, his focus shifting immediately to the safety of Elaine and Alara. Finding them in the secure chamber, he knelt beside Alara, his reassuring smile easing her fear. We're okay, he said gently. The bad guys are gone. Elaine's gratitude was evident as she met Max's gaze. You saved us again, she said, her voice trembling. Max shook his head. We saved each other. That evening, as the crew celebrated their victory, Max and Elaine shared a quiet moment on the observation deck. The stars seemed brighter, the danger momentarily at bay. You risked everything for us, Elaine said, her tone filled with emotion. Why? Max hesitated before answering. Because you and Alara deserve a chance to live freely. And because I care about you. Elaine's breath caught, her heart racing. For the first time since her exile, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope for a future beyond mere survival. I care about you too, she admitted softly. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, their bond deepened, setting the stage for a love that would defy the odds and reshape their destinies. The victory over the pursuit ship brought temporary relief to the crew of the Vanguard. But Max, Elaine, and the rest of the crew knew it was only a matter of time before King Rylan sent more forces. The stakes were higher than ever, and the fragile peace aboard the ship was laced with tension. Max called a meeting with his senior officers in the command room. The holographic display showed a map of nearby star systems, each marked with potential safe havens and threats. We've shaken them off for now, Max began, his voice firm, but Rylan won't stop until he gets what he wants. Lieutenant Greaves, Max's second-in-command, crossed her arms. And what exactly does he want? Princess Alain and her daughter dead? Or just back under his control? Alain, who had insisted on attending the meeting, spoke up. He doesn't care about me or Alara. To him, we're a blemish on his rule. He'll do whatever it takes to erase us from existence. Max's jaw tightened. Then we can't stay on the move forever. We need a plan, a place where you and Alara can be safe, permanently. The discussion turned to the nearby nebula expanse, a region known for its volatile space storms and hidden colonies. Max proposed heading there, where the storms would make it difficult for pursuers to track them. It's dangerous, he admitted, but it's our best chance. Elaine looked at him, her golden eyes steady. If it keeps Alara safe, I'll face any danger. The crew worked tirelessly to prepare for the journey through the nebula expanse. Max oversaw the fortification of the ship's shields and weapons systems, while Elaine assisted in organizing supplies and training with the crew. Though she was no soldier, her royal upbringing had taught her discipline and adaptability, and she refused to be a burden. One evening, Max found Aine in the ship's training room, practicing with a blaster under Greaves's supervision. Her stance was steady, her aim improving with each shot. Max watched her for a moment before stepping forward. "You're a quick learner," he said, his tone teasing. Eileen smiled, lowering the blaster. "Desperation is a good motivator." Max's expression softened. "You're not desperate, Alain. You're determined. There's a difference." Her gaze lingered on him. "And you're the one who's given me the strength to be determined." The weight of her words hung between them, unspoken feelings growing stronger with each passing day. As the Vanguard entered the outskirts of the nebula expanse, the crew's vigilance increased. The sensors were constantly monitored for signs of pursuit, and Max kept a close eye on the unpredictable space storms. Their fears were realized when an enemy signal appeared on the scanners. "It's a cruiser," Greaves reported, "heavily armed, and it's closing in fast." Max clenched his fists. "They must have tracked our trajectory. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not giving them an easy fight." The enemy ship, marked with the royal crest of Celestria, opened fire. The first volley rocked the Vanguard, its shields flaring as they absorbed the impact. Max took the helm, expertly weaving through the storm-charged debris fields of the nebula. Elaine stood in the command room, her hands gripping the edge of the console as she watched the battle unfold. "What can I do to help?" she asked. "Stay here with Alara," Max said firmly. "Your safety is my priority." But Elaine shook her head. "No, this is my fight too." The nebula expanse became a chaotic battleground. Max's intimate knowledge of the ship and his crew's loyalty gave the Vanguard an edge, but the enemy cruiser's firepower was overwhelming. Elaine, defying Max's orders, joined the tactical team, offering her insights into Celestrian battle tactics. "Their weapons are power-hungry," she pointed out. "If we can bait them into firing repeatedly, they'll drain their reserves." Max hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. "You heard her," he told the crew. "Focus on evasion. Make them waste their shots." The plan worked. The enemy ship's firepower began to dwindle, its attacks growing less precise. Max seized the opportunity, ordering a concentrated strike on its engines. The Vanguard's cannons roared, their shots finding their mark. The enemy cruiser faltered, its systems failing. Greaves reported, "They're retreating." A collective sigh of relief swept through the crew. Max turned to Elaine, his expression a mix of exasperation and admiration. "I told you to stay safe." Elaine crossed her arms, a faint smile on her lips. "And I did, by helping you win." After the battle, the Vanguard found a temporary safe zone within the nebula. The crew worked to repair the ship, their spirits buoyed by the victory. Elaine and Alara joined the crew, intending to minor repairs and organizing supplies, integrating further into the ship's makeshift family. That evening, Max found Elaine on the observation deck, where she often went to reflect. She was staring out at the swirling colors of the nebula, her expression thoughtful. "You were incredible today," Max said, leaning against the railing beside her. Elaine turned to him, her eyes shimmering in the faint light. "I just did what I had to." Max studied her, his voice lowering. "You've been through so much, Elaine. Most people would have broken under the weight of it. But you keep fighting." She smiled softly. "Because I have something to fight for. Alara, this ship, and you." Max's breath caught. "Me," Elaine nodded, stepping closer. You've been my anchor in all this chaos, Max. I don't know what I'd do without you. For a moment, the universe seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them. Max reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. You'll never have to find out, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Their connection, forged in the fires of adversity, deepened into something undeniable. As the stars danced around them, they found solace in each other, knowing that together they could face whatever lay ahead. The swirling storms of the nebula expanse faded as the Vanguard emerged into a pocket of calm space. Before them was Sanctum's refuge, a hidden colony built into the skeleton of an ancient asteroid. The settlement was a patchwork of makeshift homes, bustling markets, and shield generators, its residents a mix of outcasts, traders, and wanderers. Max docked the ship, guiding Aline, Alara, and his crew into the heart of the settlement. The colony's leader, Oren Vess, greeted them with cautious optimism. We don't get many visitors, he said, his grizzled face studying them carefully, but anyone who survives the expanse is welcome here. Max introduced Aline and explained their plight. Oren listened, nodding slowly. You'll find sanctuary here, he said, his tone firm. But be warned, peace doesn't come cheap in this part of space. Enemies often follow, and we're not equipped for a siege. Aline, holding Alara close, met Oren's gaze. We'll contribute however we can. We're not looking for charity, just a chance to rebuild. Over the following weeks, Aline and Alara began to integrate into Sanctum's refuge. Aline helped in the colony's medical bay, her royal training in diplomacy proving invaluable in managing disputes among the settlers. Alara, curious and bright, quickly befriended other children, her laughter echoing through the asteroid's metallic corridors. Max worked with the colony's defense teams, upgrading their shields and teaching them basic combat tactics. His presence brought a sense of security, and his reputation as a skilled soldier earned him respect among the settlers. One evening, as they walked through the colony's bustling marketplace, Elaine turned to Max. This place feels different, she said, her voice tinged with hope. Like it could be home. Max nodded, his gaze lingering on her. It's the closest thing to one I've seen in a long time. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Vin, a rogue trader and occasional informant. His expression was grim as he approached Max. Word travels fast in these parts, he said. Your royal friends have stirred up quite the hunt. King Ryland's forces are scouring the sector, and it won't be long before they find Sanctum's refuge. Elaine's face paled. He'll destroy everything to get to us, she whispered. Max's jaw tightened. Then we make sure he doesn't. The colony mobilized under Max's leadership. Working day and night, they fortified the settlement, upgrading shield generators and building hidden defensive positions. Aline coordinated with the colony's leaders, leveraging her knowledge of Celestrian tactics to anticipate Ryland's strategies. You don't have to do this, Max said one evening as they worked side by side. Aline looked at him, determination in her golden eyes. I won't stand by while others fight for us. This is my battle, too. Max smiled, his admiration for her growing. You're incredible, you know that? Elaine blushed, but didn't look away. And you're the reason I've found my strength again. The warning came just before dawn. Ryland's fleet had entered the system, its imposing ships casting long shadows over the colony. The settlers braced themselves, their fear palpable, but their resolve unshaken. Max stood on the command platform, issuing orders with calm precision. Hold your positions. Let them come to us. Remember, this is our home. We fight for it, and we fight for each other. Aline joined him, her blaster at her side. You're not going out there alone, she said firmly. Max nodded, his voice softer now. Just stay close. The first wave of Ryland's forces descended on the colony, their ships firing relentlessly at the shields. Explosions lit up the asteroid as the settlers fought back, their makeshift weapons surprisingly effective under Max's guidance. Elaine directed a squad of defenders, her quick thinking and knowledge of Celestrian technology proving invaluable. Aim for their stabilizers, she called out. It'll disable their maneuvering thrusters. Alara, kept safe in a hidden bunker with other children, listened to the distant sounds of battle. Despite her fear, she clung to the knowledge that her mother and Max were fighting to protect her. As the battle raged, Max and Aline led a strike team to the enemy flagship. Their goal, disable its command systems and force a retreat. The mission was perilous, the ship heavily guarded, but Max's tactical brilliance and Alien's determination carried them through. In the flagship's control room, they came face to face with General Tyros, one of Ryland's most loyal commanders. "You should have stayed in exile, Princess," Tyros sneered. "Now you'll die like the traitor you are." Max stepped forward, his rifle raised. "You'll have to get through me first." The ensuing fight was brutal. Max's skill and experience matched Tyros's brute strength, while Alien used her agility and quick thinking to disable the control systems. Together, they overpowered Tyros, forcing him to surrender. With the flagship disabled, Ryland's fleet faltered. The settlers, emboldened by the victory, launched a coordinated counterattack that forced the remaining enemy ships to retreat. Cheers erupted across the colony as the danger passed. Max and Elaine returned to Sanctum's refuge, their bond stronger than ever. As they stepped off the ship, Alara ran to them, throwing her arms around her mother. "You did it!" she exclaimed, her eyes shining with pride. Elaine knelt, holding her daughter close. "We did it, my love, together." That evening, the colony celebrated their victory. Max and Elaine stood on a high balcony overlooking the festivities, the weight of the battle giving way to a quiet sense of triumph. "You saved us," Elaine said, her voice filled with gratitude. Max shook his head. "We saved each other." Elaine smiled, her heart full. "I couldn't have done this without you." Max reached for her hand, his touch firm yet gentle. "You won't have to. Not now, not ever." As they stood under the stars, the future felt brighter than it had in years. Sanctum's refuge wasn't just a safe haven, it was a new beginning. A place where love, hope, and resilience could thrive against all odds. The victory at Sanctum's refuge rippled through the galaxy, but the triumph was short-lived. Days after the battle, a transmission from King Ryland reached the settlement. His face, sharp and commanding, filled the colony's main screen as his voice echoed with authority. "Princess Aline," he began, his tone cold. "You've defied your station and sullied our royal name, but despite your betrayal, I will offer you a final chance to redeem yourself. Return to Celestria with the child, and I will spare this settlement. Refuse, and I will unleash the full might of my fleet." Aline stood before the screen, her face pale but resolute. She clenched her fists, her golden eyes blazing. "He's bluffing," she said. "Ryland's power doesn't extend this far." Max, standing beside her, shook his head. "He's desperate, but he's not bluffing. He'll destroy this place if he thinks it will hurt you." The colony's leader, Orin Vess, looked grave. "We've survived one assault, but a full fleet, we wouldn't stand a chance." A tense silence filled the room. Aline turned to Max, her voice low but steady. "I won't let them die because of me. I'll go." "No," Max said immediately, his voice sharp with emotion. "You're not going back there. You're not sacrificing yourself to that tyrant." Aline met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. "This isn't just about me, Max. It's about Alara. If Ryland sees her as a threat, he'll never stop hunting her. This has to end." Max took her hands, his grip firm. "Then we end it together. But you're not facing him alone." In the hours that followed, the settlement's leaders and Max's crew devised a bold plan. They would lure Ryland's fleet into a trap, using the volatile storms of the nebula expanse to turn the odds in their favor. Elaine, however, would play a crucial role. "I'll send a message agreeing to his terms," she explained. "I'll tell him I'm surrendering. When he arrives, we'll spring the trap." Max frowned, his protective instincts at war with his tactical mind. "It's too risky. If anything goes wrong." Elaine placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft but firm. "This is the only way, Max. He needs to believe I'm willing to submit. It's the only way to draw him in." Max sighed, his jaw tight. "I don't like it, but I trust you." Elaine's message was sent, her tone carefully measured to convince Ryland of her capitulation. "I will return to Celestria," she said in the transmission. "But only if the child is spared. Do not harm Sanctum's refuge." The response came swiftly. "Prepare yourself, sister," Ryland replied, his voice laced with triumph. "Your defiance ends here." As the enemy fleet approached, Max and Aline shared a quiet moment in the observation deck. Alara, unaware of the full danger, played nearby with some of the colony's children. "I won't let him take you," Max said, his voice low. "No matter what happens." Aline smiled faintly, her hand brushing his. "I know. That's why I'm not afraid." The fleet descended on Sanctum's refuge with overwhelming force. Ryland's flagship loomed like a harbinger of doom, its weapons aimed at the colony. The settlers braced themselves, their defenses prepared to the best of their ability. Max stood at the command post, his voice steady as he issued orders. "Hold your positions. Wait for my signal. We're going to make them regret coming here." Aline, stationed in the decoy ship that would act as the bait, watched the approaching fleet with a mixture of fear and determination. Her voice came through the comms, calm and clear. "They're locking onto me. Prepare for the signal." Ryland's voice boomed across the colony's channels. "Aline, step forward. Show yourself, and perhaps I'll show mercy." Aline appeared on the decoy ship's screen, her expression defiant. "You'll never have my loyalty again, Ryland, but I'm here to end this, one way or another." As Ryland's fleet moved closer, their ships were drawn into the nebula's unstable energy fields. Max's crew activated hidden emitters, creating false sensor readings that confused the enemy's targeting systems. At the same time, the colony's shield generators overloaded, releasing a shockwave that disabled several of the pursuing ships. The battle erupted in chaos. Sanctum's refuge fought with everything they had, their makeshift fleet surprising the enemy with its precision and ferocity. Max led the charge, his tactical brilliance turning the nebula itself into a weapon. Ryland, realizing the trap too late, ordered his forces to fall back. But his flagship remained, its weapons targeting Aline's decoy ship. As Ryland's flagship prepared to fire, Max launched a daring maneuver. With Aline's help, they boarded the enemy ship, fighting their way to the command center. The corridors echoed with the sounds of blaster fire and clashing steel. When they finally confronted Ryland, he sneered at Aline. "You've become weak, sister? A human soldier as your champion? How pathetic." Aline stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "Strength isn't measured by cruelty, Ryland. It's measured by what you're willing to protect." The fight that followed was brutal. Max and Ryland clashed in a fierce duel, while Aline used her knowledge of the ship's systems to disable its weapons. With a final, decisive strike, Max disarmed Ryland, leaving him at their mercy. "You've lost," Aline said, her voice cold, "and I will not let you hurt my family again." Ryland's fleet retreated, leaving Sanctum's refuge victorious. The settlers cheered as Max, Aline, and Alara returned to the colony. For the first time in years, Aline felt truly free. As they stood together under the stars, Max took Aline's hand. "It's over," he said. "You're safe now." Aline smiled, her heart full. "Because of you, because of us." Alara ran to them, her laughter filling the air. "Are we really safe, Mama?" "Yes, my love," Aline replied, lifting her daughter into her arms. "We're safe. And we're home." In the glow of victory, Sanctum's refuge became more than a sanctuary. It became a place of hope, love, and new beginnings for a family that had faced the galaxy's worst and emerged stronger together.